Hello ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon or good evening, depending upon what time of the day it is that you are watching this. Welcome to another chatbot deep dive, and today we are looking at FAQs and training. So a chatbot FAQ is essentially how a chatbot responds to the question. So imagine if I have a typical customer service question, what time are you open till? The chatbot's going to look through its let's say knowledge base is a good way of putting it, or its repertoire of FAQs, look at the question that it's been asked and find the correct answer, which will usually be something along the lines of we're open 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, obviously depending upon the situation. So essentially the FAQ is very much, and a nice way to explain this if you've kind of never engaged with a chatbot before, is imagine if you have taught a chatbot knowledge on a pub quiz and then it's asked to answer questions based upon the revision that you gave it for said quiz. That's essentially what happens, is that whenever a user asks a question, it's essentially asking the chatbot a quiz question, and then the chatbot's going to go through its memory and find the correct answer. Now I'm going to show you how you can create FAQs within the ubisend platform. It's going to be quite similar to the majority of chatbot platforms out there, although ubisend has a few extra little tweaks and twists which might make it a little bit more powerful. And once we've kind of done that, we're then going to look at training, which is how you improve your chatbot's knowledge over time and how the chatbot essentially becomes, I was about to say a sentient being, but obviously not a sentient being, but pretty much self-sufficient and can answer all the questions that it needs to without any human interference or assistance. So training is where you tell the chatbot, okay, the user asked this question, this is a different phrase, or maybe they spelt everything completely wrong. So at first the chatbot didn't quite understand, and you're going to say, well, this question actually responds to this answer. The more that you do that, the more the chatbot's going to understand a wider range of English or whatever language that it's engaging in, and then we'll be able to answer an awful lot of questions. Okay, so talking of FAQs, I think the best thing that we can do is basically dive straight in. So as you can see on my screen here, we have the ubisend platform as always. We're currently in the demo section. What I will actually do is I will navigate to knowledge and then FAQs, and I'm just going to open up this in a new tab. And so this is your FAQ kind of knowledge base. This is where all of your FAQs are stored. As you can see, I've already got a few here earlier. I'm always a big fan of the reference. If anyone is from the UK and they remember the old Blue Peter show, here's some I made earlier. And essentially how it works is you have questions and you have answers, and pretty much as they sound, a chatbot's questions are different ways a user could ask the question. So here is a booking table example, quite a basic example. We have, can I book a table, how do I book a table, and I need to book a table. So 3 ways a user could ask the same question. And if we navigate over to answers, we have, you can book a table through me, which is just the kind of like little quick reply there. And then we have a link to an open table widget, which lets the user book a table within the chatbot. So let's just go and have a little demonstration of how this works. So imagine I've just asked the chatbot, can I book a table? And we will press enter there. The chatbot will take a few seconds thinking about it. My internet is always a little bit slow when I'm streaming, so you have to bear with me. Here we are. And you can book a table through me. I can then click and go through and start making a table reservation using the open table widget that I've added in there into the answers. One other thing I will also mention as well, during this we're going to be showing off a few different message types. That is a previous live stream we did, I believe 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe about a month or so ago now, not quite sure. But yeah, so so we'll be using the different message types. One of these is obviously using this open table widget. Again, I'll leave the link to that live stream in the description if you want to learn more about the different message types. I'll cover on them briefly, but I'm not going to go into a huge amount of depth while we're talking. Okay, so that is an FAQ. It's essentially the main premise of most chatbot platforms and most chatbots out there. And if you've ever engaged with a chatbot, it's normally to ask it a few quick questions. So I'm sure everyone is aware of what an FAQ is. So let's kind of go ahead. We'll start making our own. And obviously as well, if you are watching live, feel free to throw a couple example questions down into the comments, and I'll be able to just kind of make them in the chatbot platform live for you. And of course as well, if you are watching on demand, feel free to just kind of ask any questions that you have within the comment section. We'll either get back to you via YouTube comments, or we'll ping you to a link where there's going to be a little bit more information if it's quite an in-depth question. Okay, perfect. So navigating back into FAQs, we're going to create our first FAQ. So here we're going to click Add FAQ, and we're going to give it a name. And I think for this one, we're going to use a HR example. So let's go with book annual leave. Because this is quite a nice FAQ, which is going to allow us to show how this FAQ can actually be used to expand a chatbot's FAQ from just a simple question to actually guiding the user through an entire process, and then it's maybe going to lead into extra live streams that we've got coming up in the future. So the first thing here, name, book annual leave. Name is purely internally, so make sure you name it something that makes sense, so it's easy to refer to. And here as well we have tags. Again, tags are for internal use, and it's just basically a folder system of sorts, so that you can kind of group different FAQs. So here, as you can see, I haven't created any tags yet. I'm going to create this one, and I'm just going to call this along the lines of annual leave. So now I've created this tag, and that means when we create multiple FAQs that are all within the annual leave grouping. So here we've got book annual leave. We might have questions which is how much annual leave do I have left? How much annual leave am I allowed throughout the year? You'd obviously tag these all with annual leave so you can kind of filter and refer back to them at a later date. Okay, now we need to kind of give the questions of different ways of asking this FAQ. And also as well, you can see here that we have, because on the platform I'm on, I've also activated the German language there. But for the purpose of this demo, I'm only going to be doing it in English. But ubisend, it is a multilingual platform. You can support up to 60 different languages. But we won't be using the German options today, purely for the sake of time. And you don't need to see me create the same FAQ in multiple languages. I'm sure you'll all understand the gist of it. Okay, perfect. So we've got annual leave. So let's kind of think of a few different ways. We've got who can I speak to about annual leave. As you can see, I am just kind of using the placeholder example here. It didn't really click in my head that I was using the placeholder example. We'll create another FAQ after this, which isn't the placeholder example. But then we'll say, who can I speak to about annual leave? I need to book annual leave. And can you help me book annual leave? And as I mentioned as well, the German is activated on the kind of little demo account I'm in, so I'm just going to put in a few default responses for German. I do this in every video, as we're not actually speaking to the chatbot in German. These little default responses that I've put aren't going to matter because we're not speaking to it in German. Obviously as well, if you wanted to create it in German, you would find the correct translation of this and just kind of add it into the German section there. Okay, so that's our first 3 responses. Now we're going to click create. So here we are, we've successfully created the FAQ for book annual leave, and now we're going to need to add a few answers. So in this, the user is asking if they can book annual leave, and we're going to kind of go with a few different ways about this. First of all, we're going to say, you can book annual leave through me, and I'll put, or would you rather, actually no, we'll just leave, you can book annual leave through me. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the action message type, and we're just going to make this a postback message, and again to say get started. So this means that whenever the user asks a question, it's going to basically say yes, you can book annual leave through me, and a little link to actually get started on that process. And here we'll put the postback book annual leave. So what a postback is, if you've done any of the watched any of these live streams before, you'll be aware that this is kind of a common situation. That we have the book annual, that a postback essentially is a signpost for a chatbot platform. So what it says is when a user clicks this get started button, the text at the top, the little phrase, the postback here, book annual leave, is going to tell the chatbot where to take the user next. So it's a way of signposting to the system in plain English, so you don't have to write any code or anything like that, where to next take the user within the conversation. So, and obviously as well, I do have this German option that I still need to add in the same for all the German that we always do. We're just going to put a little bit of gobbledygook because we're not using the German element just for the purpose of these tutorials. Okay, we will click save. Okay, so now what I'll do is, as you can see, it's just come up here as our first question. And what I'll do is I will just head over into the demo section here of the platform, and I will ask the question, who can I speak to about annual leave? And the chatbot's now going to take a second to think and say, you can book annual leave through me, and then give us an option to get started. So this is the kind of perfect FAQ just kind of being answered within the platform and then giving us a little link to kind of go find more information. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to leave it there slightly, and I'm going to give a different FAQ as a different example so you can kind of see the two in tandem of how the chatbot can actually, because here what I've done is I've created an FAQ which is going to lead on to a more in-depth and thorough conversation. Whereas I'm just now going to create a quick FAQ which just kind of gives you the answer there and then perfectly. And so we're going to keep with the annual leave element of this, and we're going to create another FAQ. So just going to click add FAQ, and this one's going to call, and then we're going to call this one annual leave allowance. And for the tags, again, we're just going to tag this with annual leave because it's related. And this is going to be how much annual leave do I have? How much, what is our annual leave allowance? And how many days annual leave do I get? So 3 questions there, all about essentially asking the same thing, and again the same with the German, just for the purpose of the demonstration, we're not using that. And here we're going to just kind of respond with an actual FAQ, just kind of inputting the answer. So we're just going to again type the answer here. Employees are entitled to, let's say this is the most insane company in the entire world, well, I've put 52 days off per year. Obviously 52 days off per year is probably a little bit generous, I think, to say the least. I'm not too sure if there are any companies that do offer 52 days off per year. If you do, you're very lucky to work at that company, but that's just the example that I've come up with because for some reason I couldn't think of any other numbers apart from 52. The joys of live stream. Okay, so that is kind of, again, just a quick answer there. And then what I like to do with some FAQs is then just follow it up with a anything else I can help with. And leave a little question mark there, and then just click save. So that's just kind of letting the conversation continue flowing, showing the chatbot can still answer a few more questions. So let's jump into the demo and just kind of have another little look. So if I just click how much annual leave do I have, there we can see that the employees are entitled to 52 days off per year, and it's asked if there's anything else it can help with. So this is just kind of a few examples. As you can see, this FAQ here is just kind of a quick response. It took me about 3 seconds to find the answer. I didn't have to click through any employee portals, I didn't have to find a big 100-page employee manual or anything like that and find the relevant section, ask a colleague, ask a manager, ask the HR department, take up everyone else's time, anything along those lines. Just ask a quick question, got my answer instantly. So now let's kind of go back to the slightly more in-depth one here, which is who can I speak to, which is actually booking annual leave. So when we click this button, get started, we want the chatbot to essentially, as I mentioned, if we just go look back at the answers, to signpost the user to a conversation which is helping them book annual leave. So this conversation is actually going to take place within the conversation builder. So we're slightly stretching away from the FAQs here. The conversation builder is incredibly vast, so we're going to have future live streams on that in the future. But here we're just going to make a little bit of a default conversation just to show you how this progress will go. So we've kind of got a name for this conversation. We're going to call this one booking annual leave. And again, name, description, tags, exact same as the FAQs. This is just how you kind of internal use for keeping things organized. I'm going to put this conversation helps employees book annual leave. And again, for the tags, we're going to call this annual leave. So here we've got the old annual leave tag. Okay, so now we're going to trigger this conversation. What that means is, how does this conversation start? What action does the user have had to take to reach this conversation? Now, so we're going to say when any of the following conditions are met, if a message equals book annual leave. So if I jump back here, so as you can see, when someone clicks this get started, or this little get started button here on the right, it's going to tell the chatbot book _ annual _ leave. If we jump over into the builder, as you can see here, we've got book _ annual leave. So when a message equals this, that's what's going to happen. So this is just kind of a little internal way of moving the employee through the conversation. And then it's going to start our new conversation. And here we just have an example message. Obviously not going to flesh this conversation out entirely because this isn't particularly a live stream on the builder. I just wanted to show you how an FAQ can lead into kind of guiding the employee through a process. And so we're just going to put, okay, how many, what is the start date of your time off? And here we're going to change the composer to date. So this means that when the user, basically when the user asks this question, they're going to be able to choose a little answer via a date and calendar picking. And we're going to say, and then after that, we're going to ask to say the next one, which is when a message equals, when a message is a date. Well, let me just find that. Is a date. So this time, then the employee is going to be moved through the conversation when they've responded with a date by using the date and time picker. So, and we're going to call this one, so this next step is going to be return to office date. And here it's going to say, and when, and it's going to say, thanks. Or, I mean, obviously, you can work on your own kind of branding and your own tone of voice of the chatbot. For these, I'm always a little bit dull, I think I can say. Normally, if I spend a little bit longer, we'll be able to make more exciting conversations. But I'm going to put thanks, and when do you return to the office? Little question mark there. And for this one, again, we're going to still use the date because so that they can pick a date. Obviously, as well with the German, we're just ignoring that for the time being because we are using the English examples here. So as you can see, when a user clicks this button, they're going to be taken into this conversation, ask what the start date is, and then ask their return date, and so on. Let's give that a little test. So again, let's ask, who can I speak to about annual leave? So here it's going to say, you can book annual leave through me, get started. So I'm going to click the get started button, and this is going to take me from the FAQ into the conversation that we were just creating. And hopefully this is kind of going to show you how quickly you can make kind of an automated process within the ubisend platform, starting from an FAQ. I mean, so far I've been doing this live stream for about, I don't know, like 13, 14 minutes, I think it looks like. And I've been able to kind of get so far in, I've already started to automate a process. It's really quick and it's really easy to use. But obviously then I'll just click to choose a date. I think my holiday is going to start on the 23rd of September. And that's just going to take a little second there. And as you can see, we've got thanks and when do you return to the office. So it's kind of guided me through the conversation, which is always basically, I'm not going to go through that entire conversation fleshed out because I just wanted to talk more about the FAQs. But in the pure instance and in pure essence, that is essentially how you can kind of create a few FAQs. We have essentially, if I just jump back into the FAQs here, in the space of 30 minutes created a couple of FAQs and also a bit more of a fleshed out conversation, really quite easily and really quite simply. If you ever do want to edit an FAQ, you just head over into edit here. You can edit the internal name and also the tags. So just kind of, again, this is a bit more for admin, making sure the platform's easy to use, and basically you can always kind of like analysis and everything along those lines. If you ever want to edit the questions or add a few more different question examples, which we're going to come on to with training, you just click questions there. If you ever want to change the answers, you can just click answers, and then this is going to let you change the entire conversation. So let's say, for example, let's pick the previous one. Imagine the actual amount of annual leave has changed from 52 days because it turns out 52 days maybe was not quite enough and employees wanted more holiday, which is always fair enough. Who doesn't like more holiday? So actually this time it's changed to 62 days. Yeah, everything's changed. You need to update all of your information. Literally all you need to do is just click edit, click save, and then you get a little notification up in the top saying successfully updated your FAQ responses, and that's done. You've now completely changed the information that the chatbot's providing. So it's really easy to make a few updates. I know a lot of the ubisend users, when COVID hit, especially those in pretty much any sense, whether using for sales, HR, customer service, obviously that had a huge impact on their businesses. Pretty much overnight they were going to be able to bring their chatbots up to speed on different kind of coronavirus questions, coronavirus knowledge, update to say working hours, company policies, absolutely all of that. So it's really good in these kind of I'm going to call it crisis control kind of situations where something really big happens and you don't have a lot of time, but you need to instantly get this new information out there. Using ubisend is really easy for that. Okay, perfect. So that's kind of covering actually how to kind of create FAQs. So now let's move on to the training element. So training, as I mentioned at the start of the video, is how you essentially make your chatbot a little bit smarter. So if we just jump in questions again for an example, the chatbot currently, because it hasn't been fully trained yet, because this is just a demo account, so normally when you release your chatbot live, it would have gone through a little bit of a training session. But at the moment, it's kind of only really been told that the book annual leave only really knows how to answer that if someone asks with these kind of 3 questions. But obviously, as we know, everyone can ask these questions in a variety of ways. So let's jump into the chatbot platform. And again, what I'll do is I'll just actually jump back to the FAQs here, sorry, so I'll get them both up. And here I'll show you the 3 questions. And what I'll do is I'm going to ask it a different question. Again, I'm still trying to book annual leave, but I'm going to ask it in a little bit of a different way. And a common way that this is going to be is filling it with typos. So I'm going to say I need to book annual leave, but I'm going to absolutely fill this with typos because I'm in a bit of a rush. Let's imagine, oh my God, I completely forgot to book my holiday. It's happening next month. I'm really scared. So you might go along the lines of, I need to... This is great because normally my typing is absolutely awful. So this is just basically me typing normal. I'm not even having to try too hard to put the typos in. Annual leave. So obviously this is pretty much as close to gobbledygook as you can get in terms of a typo message here. And I'm going to click enter. And the chatbot's not going to be able to understand that message because it is kind of, it's pretty poor English, I have to say there. So what happens then is you need to train the chatbot on these kind of different types of questions. So what I'll do is I'm actually just going to copy this exact example for a second there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into knowledge and then into training. And here in training, you can see the training shows like a different record of all the different messages that your chatbot's received. And here we have the message, I need to book annual, I need to book annual leave, or something along those lines. And the chatbot originally, it says here, so the different messages that was sent, what the chatbot thought it was relevant to, and the confidence score, and when the message was sent on. Now the confidence score, this is how a chatbot platform or a chatbot knows whether it should respond to a message. The higher the confidence, the higher the confidence score there, the more confident it is that it knows the right answer. There is normally a threshold, either say 50 or 80%. If that confidence score is above that threshold, the chatbot will respond with an answer. If it's below that threshold, as we've seen, it will respond with, sorry, I didn't understand. Now you have to bear with me whilst I just have a little cough. the joys of talking on the live stream all day. Basically your throat always ends up giving out on you. But as the confidence score here is quite low, it didn't send because obviously it knows that this message really probably wasn't to do with hello, it just was maybe a little bit sure. So it knows that it isn't to do anything to do with hello, so the confidence score is very low. What we need to do is we have these options. We can either say correct, we can say ignore. If it's correct, it means actually yes, you were right, that message did mean hello, which obviously as we know it does not. Or we can ignore it, which is say if someone sends something obscene to your chatbot or they're just kind of swearing at it or something, which does happen from time to time, especially in a customer-facing environment. People like to just play around the chatbots, try and break them. Say if somebody just puts a message to your chatbot like, why is the table flying outside with a purple sky underneath a rainbow? These are people that are just trying to break the chatbot, and it happens with pretty much every chatbot out there, especially in a customer-facing environment. You might want to just ignore these messages because at the end of the day, they don't really mean anything and they're not going to provide any value to your chatbot. Or you can explore. So explore essentially means let's look at all of the different FAQs that it has and tell it which one is the right answer. So here in the bottom, I can just kind of click FAQs. These are the FAQs we have in. This one is obviously about booking annual leave. So I'll click book annual leave and I will click update. So this basically means we're going to tell the chatbot when someone says something similar to this long bit of gobbledygook I mean here, it actually means book annual leave. I'm going to click confirm. And then if I jump back into the different FAQs we have, and this book annual leave, if I go into the questions, you'll be able to see this is another example way of how users may ask the chatbot the question, I need to book annual leave. So this example has now appeared here. The more that you do this, the more it will understand and the higher its confidence score will get, and you're not going to have to train it on absolutely every single different variant of the way of someone can ask a question. The more it's trained, the better its understanding it's going to be of what essentially it will be able to say, okay, I know annual leave and book within the same sentence normally refer to this answer. The more that you claim it, the better it's going to be at responding with these questions. But just to kind of show how this works, if I now go and ask the chatbot the same thing here, I say I need to book annual leave. This time it's going to be able to understand that question and I'm going to be able to get started with the booking annual leave process. So this is kind of training the chatbot. Let's kind of just throw in a few different examples so you can kind of see what else I mean. If I imagine I just say something to the chatbot like, that's obviously something which isn't particularly any useful to the chatbot. What we'll do is we'll head over into here, we'll head back into knowledge, down into training, and we'll just click ignore on this one. Because that is not the kind of message that you typically want your chatbot to be able to understand. And I think as well, what a nice way to do this is going to be, and also as well, actually I'll just a little rundown of the training page here. As I mentioned to you, this is the chatbot confidence score. So let's just kind of put a few different messages into the chatbot. We'll go with a bit more gobbledygook, and then we'll go with I need to book annual leave. It may understand this, it may not. As you're going to be able to understand that, because as I mentioned, this chatbot hasn't been trained at all. It's pretty much a brand new chatbot here. So over time, it's going to be able to understand these a little bit better. And then we're going to put a different one, which is going to be book annual leave. So this is just an example of how you can kind of train a chatbot. And then again, we might just put something completely ridiculous like, what color is the rainbow on a Thursday morning in June? So just kind of a bit of a ridiculous question there, as I was mentioning earlier. And also we're going to go along the lines of something, let's say, just say hello there. Okay, so as you can see, it understands a little hello there because the chatbot is using a little bit of ubisend NLP. All right, so let's jump into the training, reset the training, reload the page. And here we have all of our different messages. So as you can see here, we've got different confidence scores. So I can use this this section here of the confidence to kind of filter out and between these confidence scores, so I can kind of makes it a little bit easier if you want to train certain confidence scores or you want to just look at messages that were low to 50% of the confidence, because those are ones that might typically need training. Or obviously as well, I can just kind of use absolutely none of those options there and just refresh the page. So what I can do as well is I can also bulk train, essentially, which is, as you can see, what color is it on Thursday on a rainbow, that kind of these gobbledygook messages, these two that here that I put. I want to just ignore all of these messages because they are not relevant to me, to my chatbot. So that's going to ignore them all for me. here, book annual leave and I need to book annual leave, these both refer to the annual leave questions that we were originally talking about. As you can see, the chatbot hasn't quite understood these because, as I mentioned, this is literally, I don't know, it's been alive for about 20 minutes, this chatbot, so it's going to take a little while to kind of get there. So we'll just do exactly what I was doing earlier, which is to go down, find the annual leave and click update and just train it on that. And then again, we'll do the same here, which, as you can see also, we have quick train. So these are common questions that your chatbot has asked. And the more that FAQs that you have in, the more you train your chatbot, the better the quick train options that you'll see here are. Once you've kind of been training it for quite a while, you'll realize that at the moment, these are just kind of typical small talk questions, such as thank you, goodbye, and hello. The more that you use it, when you kind of have these similar questions to book annual leave, you'll find these coming up in quick train because the chatbot's learning as you go and its kind of little brain is getting a little bit smarter. A nice way of thinking about this is imagine you're kind of trying to teach a child how to book annual leave for an employee. It's a very similar process. They'll learn very quick, and after kind of a day or so of training, your chatbot's going to be pretty much solid with a huge understanding of the subject. Let's go book annual leave here, click update. So this is me just kind of training the chatbot on quite a few different variants. And as you can see, the chatbot itself is now going to be getting a lot smarter because now I can just kind of come in and say book annual leave and fingers crossed it's going to be able to understand. But yeah, there we are, the chatbot can understand it easily. Or I can just say I need to book annual leave and the chatbot's going to be able to start understanding all of these messages. And you can see how you can gradually progress to having a really informed chatbot. And the more that you train, as I mentioned, you don't always have to have exact same matches and exact replicas. The chatbot's going to be able to understand. So that is kind of training in the chatbot FAQs in a nutshell. We at ubisend, especially with this platform, done kind of pretty much everything we can to make it as streamlined and as easy as it is for you to be able to actually use the platform. A few other things with the training screen that I should have mentioned. Obviously as well, you have English and German or any other languages. Multilingual platform, you might have different languages. You can filter when messages were sent if you're just looking to train messages within a specific time frame, maybe just last week's, or you want to train messages that came in a month ago, depending how regularly you train. And as well with FAQs, you can kind of do the exact same. You can use the tags to filter. You can either search through here, or you can click opening hours to search for the exact FAQ. You can export all of your FAQs. This will put them into a CSV file and send them to the email address of the user on the account. So in my case, it will be jacob@example. This is really nice if you have a lot of FAQs and you want to review them all. If you're, say, looking at different kinds of training or anything along those lines, or you want to just have a quick review of every single FAQ and say maybe you've got 100 to 150, 200 FAQs in the platform. Other thing as well that I want to mention is the follow-up. So follow-up is where you ask users to rate the helpfulness of your chatbot. This is really good when your chatbot's first starting out. It kind of helps it understand a little bit more. So when follow-up is enabled, I'm just going to click it and I'm just going to show you what it means when it's on. But it means when when a user asks the question, the chatbot's going to turn around and say, was this helpful? They can click yes or no. So if I jump into the training and back into the demo section here, and I say I need to book annual leave, the chatbot's going to ask, okay, you can book annual leave through me. Was this helpful? And I can click yes. And then the chatbot's going to ask if we can ask any more questions. So this is a really nice way to kind of improve your training process of the chatbot. This essentially is kind of, you know, say, well, let me just jump into the training board here. Okay, let me just quickly ask another variety of gobbledygook just to kind of get that training set up. So here we have that little bit of gobbledygook. You know, when we click correct or ignore, correct, sorry, just the correct. If a user clicks the yes, it was helpful, then they say yes. That's a little bit like you clicking correct there for the chatbot if it's kind of unsure of the answer. So this is a nice way of just basically using the platform or kind of having the training session also take place with users just to continually build up its knowledge that little bit quicker. A few other things with the follow-up. If I just jump into the FAQ, we'll jump back into FAQs here and just go to follow-up. You can obviously, this is just kind of a default in response, so you don't have to worry about setting any of this kind of actual follow-up up. That's a bit of a confusing sentence. It really is just clicking this on and off. Really nice, really simple there. Just trying to have a little quick think, a few little tips as well. If you are creating chatbot, we typically recommend that chatbot platforms have between 100 to 200 FAQs. You don't want to start adding too many more than that because sometimes your chatbot can feel quite bloated. The best chatbots are ones that are kind of hyper-focused. They have a specific kind of use case or a challenge that they are trying to solve. A nice example is, say, if you have a sales chatbot and its goal is to understand, say, a specific range of your products. That's a nice example of how you can then use that chatbot. Keep it nice and focused. You don't want your sales chatbot that's there to answer questions about products and kind of guide users in towards, say, maybe booking a demo or purchases, to also know things such as your HR examples, and you don't also want it to be employee facing at the same time. Because then what will happen is your chatbot becomes a little bit bloated. It's not going to be as efficient as you need it to be. The best thing to do in that situation is to spin up two chatbots. So you'll have your sales chatbot, your customer facing chatbot, and then you'll also have your separate internal HR facing chatbot, employee facing chatbot, I should say, sorry. This is a different live stream, so I'm not going to go too much into it. With ubisend, that's really simple. As you can see here, I've got the accounts. This is where I've got all of my different demo accounts that I just kind of have a little play around in for certain videos, or just kind of showing customers or clients, or just testing new features we're working on. As you can see, I've got all these different accounts here. Imagine this one here, this simply said HR chatbot. This one here was sales chatbot. I'll just be able to dive into the two, be able to make any different updates, change everything as I go along. So really nice example of how this can kind of look. What I will do as well is I'll just show you a chatbot which has quite a few more FAQs in, so you can kind of understand how they look when there's a lot more FAQs in. This is just kind of a demo. As you can see here, I'm in a different chatbot platform here. This is one that we use for demos and just testing it out. This is where we've got a huge amount of different FAQs. Quite a few of them have been tagged, so you can kind of go through, filter between all the FAQs that are to do with holiday. It's going to obviously take a little bit of time to load because of my bad internet when I'm streaming. I can filter through all the different FAQs such as contact HR. I'll be able to find specific ones. I can look for a specific FAQ in here. So say if I'm looking for, can I work from home? There we are, perfect. Wasn't actually sure if there was an FAQ about that. That was quite lucky that there was. But yeah, so this is how you can kind of look at all these different, and again, if I jump into training, you'll be able to see, actually I suppose we haven't used this platform in a little while, so there hasn't been too many messages sent. But this is kind of how a platform starts to look. And as well, obviously, if I jump into the old dashboard here, as I mentioned, there hasn't been a huge amount of engagement with this demo account because this is just basically where we kind of test things and fill it out to make sure everything's working and perfect. But this is where I'll also then be able to go, and as you can see, you've got FAQs triggered. This is how many times people have actually engaged with the chatbot. You can start putting specific FAQs in related to, specific metrics in related to your FAQs to better understand your chatbot's performance. So it's really nice, really handy way. It's been quite a quick live stream there. I wanted to keep this one quite quick and succinct because at the end of the day, creating FAQs and training your chatbot, while it is often the core of many chatbot platforms, are actually very simple. It's basically input your input your questions, input your answer, and then go through and train it on quite a few different variations of asking that question. And that's how you're going to end up with a knowledgeable chatbot. If you do ever have any questions about different chatbot kind of FAQs, training, a couple of popular questions that we get quite a bit, I'll just kind of answer a few of them off the top of my head now. As I mentioned, the best number of FAQs, between 100 to 200, keep it nice and focused. Is there a limit on FAQs? Within ubisend, no, there's not. You can have as many FAQs as you want, but do try and, don't go too overboard if you want to have a nice, efficient chatbot. Different languages, up to 60 different languages the chatbot can support, with multiple at the same time. It can be English, French, German, and Italian all at the same time. Doesn't really matter, completely up to you. I'm trying to think of a few different FAQs that we get asked on FAQs. In terms of actually, say, updating, as I mentioned, it can be really quick to update. Once you've updated an answer, that goes live pretty much instantly. So you'll be able to, there's no kind of like 24-hour waiting period that if you say made an update, and it needs to be served instantly, the updated information will be served instantly to your users. Training a chatbot as well, that is pretty much instant, as you saw me do on the earlier examples. I trained it and then there I was ready to do it. So really nice, really simple. I believe if you do have any more questions, throw them down in the comments, and also as well make sure to subscribe to the channel because you don't really want to miss out on a lot of the different behaviour and a lot of the different videos that we're adding up. Always, these live streams are always really good and really informative for understanding both chatbots in general and as well the ubisend platform, and also as well some of the more typical just regular YouTube uploads that we do. Some can be quite fun, but they're always very informative. Please do make sure you subscribe, and thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.